Hey, Doug Walker here. Again, people ask about the shirt. This is a Mr. Bill shirt. Oh no! Sorry. Just got that out there. Because sometimes you only see like the top half and you're like, what the hell is that? So that's what that is. But I just saw The First Purge, the film called The First Purge. You know what that's... I know it's already going to cause a lot of confusion, but if you clicked on this video, you know what you're watching. A Nostalgia Critic video literally just went out of me talking about kind of how the Purge movies get better. So just real quick, I'll tell you my thoughts on the first three that came before this. First film, I think is awful. I think it's a terrible, terrible film. I love the idea. I feel like they don't take advantage of it, and there's a ton of plot holes. Second film gets a lot better. They kind of retcon some of the problems in the first film. Like, there's still some issues with it, but it gets a lot better. You can see the world and see how it works. And then the third film, I think, is a legit kind of good movie. Like nothing fantastic, but I mean, like, it sort of takes in a direction that I feel like these movies really should have done, where it's kind of both, kind of this exploitation gore fest, but also kind of have this political angle, like a lot of exploitation films kind of do, but it happens almost a little bit more naturally, and doesn't feel quite as forced. And it was good suspense, good characters and stuff, so they tend to get better as they go along. And now we have this one. This is a prequel, called The First Purge, which shows, how it happened pretty much, and it's a mixed bag. And I say that because, like, a lot of the stuff in it is some of the best stuff I've seen in any of the Purge movies, from, like, the violence and the satire and the commentary and the characters. And some of it's, I can't say the worst, because we still have the original Purge film. It still has, like, the worst stuff for me. But definitely some of the least good stuff about it. Stuff like, like the acting is very split. Like, some of it is really, really good, and then other parts you kind of go, well, why did they pick this person? Well, why is this person talking this way? Nobody talks this way. Same thing with the writing. Like, some of the dialogue will be, there'll be these really good lines. I'm just like, oh man, that's like, I gotta commit that to memory. That's a good line. And then other things where you're just like, really? We're going with this? So it's very half and half. If you want the Cliff Note version real fast, I'm glad I saw it. I don't think it's the worst Purge movie. I don't think it's the best. But I do think it has kind of like the worst and best elements in it. So I'm still very happy I saw it. But to sort of get into the nitty-gritty of it, it does not go too much into the politics of how it came to be. At least when it starts out, it's something like a couple days before the first Purge is going to start. And at first I didn't like that. I wanted to see kind of, people in suits talking about how they're going to do this and stuff like that. But then the more I thought about it, I'm kind of glad they didn't, because I think it would have been too predictable. If anything, the way this works is it kind of works backwards, where the Purge is going to happen, and then you see it's kind of like Hunger Games, where you see the people watching, and they're kind of trying to figure out what's going on and why it's going on, or why something isn't going on, and then they kind of correct it, in their own way. Which, again, if you've seen the other Purge movies, there's no real surprises in this, but, it does kind of show how some of these things it came about, why the Purge technically doesn't work. But with that said, like, as soon as it starts out, like, I first thought, crap, this is gonna suck. This is gonna be awful, because, like, you just have these two incredibly hokey actors talking back and forth with close-ups like this. They're talking this close to the camera. I'm just like, oh no, like, this is gonna... At least we'll have a so bad it's good movie, kind of thing. But then, like I said, it goes back and forth with everything. Like, even, it opens with all these... after the title shows, it shows all this news coverage about how the world is in shambles and stuff. It's the year because the timeline makes no sense in these movies. Even in the first film, it made no goddamn sense. And now you can tell they're just throwing it out the window like, we don't know. This is the X-Men movies now. We know this makes no sense. So it sort of shows, like, again, almost hitting the nail a little too hard on the head, because a lot of the stuff they're showing is like real protest videos of stuff that's happened over the past couple years, and even further. So they're trying to harken a little bit on like the stuff that's going on now, but it doesn't quite go too far. Like, when it shows the president, they don't make him look like Trump. There's no Trump hat, like what they showed on the posters or anything like that. There's one really stupid joke where, like, somebody, like, when the purge starts, like, somebody's trying to, like, grab this woman. He gets close to her crotch, and she uses mace to get him off and says, she says, like, pussy grabbing motherfucker, and it's like, yeah, it's just as good as, in Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom when the guy called the hipster woman a nasty woman, like, subtle, like, shut up. Like, and that's what's so weird, because, like, with these movies, I know it's supposed to kind of be in your face, but then some of them you're really like, will you just shut up? Like, I do political jokes too, but it's like, sometimes just those hammers on the head are so painful. But what's so weird about that is that a lot of the political angles with this I found really, really interesting, because a lot of it is about, it's not everywhere. It doesn't start off everywhere in America. It only starts off on Staten Island, which is interesting. And this is going to be like their experiment. And what they do is that because it is technically an experiment, they pay people that want to take part in the experiment, and they give them these little cameras, these little contact lenses, which creates this great effect where they glow, and some good creepy imagery that comes from that. And so again, there's sort of an exploitation angle there too, of like, they're paying these people to kind of kill each other and partake in this terrible thing to sort of, but then there's also an angle that there's like kind of this politician and this scientist. They're the ones that are kind of keeping an eye on everything, and the scientist really is doing it mostly for the science, even though it's a psychotic idea, still, but she really is in it, because the research has shown this, and my numbers have shown this, so this should happen. So the build-up to this is probably the best of any of the Purge movies, because, everyone's kind of talking, are people going to do anything? Or is this going to be chaos? Or is everyone just going to fool the system and not do a thing? Or just, what's going to happen? And you really feel this dread. You see, like, everyone just kind of preparing for this, but not like in the other movies where it's like they're all just happy smiles and they just get their security system, which that's got its own commentary too, but you see them like, getting ready just in case shit really does go down, and some people preparing to do some crimes and stuff like that, and some psychos are gonna go crazy and stuff, and you got kind of this one protester who's really trying to, be against it. And a lot of people are against it, but some people are for it. And you see the different reasons why some people are signing up to do the purge. Some is for money. Others are just they want to get revenge on somebody. And the political guys, the politicians, it's already kind of obvious why they want to do it, but, they say the reason in the opening and then they get more to the main reason later, which again, if you know the other Purge movies, it's not a huge surprise. And then when the Purge starts, it's not working, like only a couple deaths are happening. It's mostly just robberies and getting money, or just my favorite is they're building up these two kind of crazy ladies who are like, they're just pushing around these shopping carts with like fireworks and stuff and little dolls that are going ah! You're like, shit, what do they have in mind? Again, without giving it away, it's just a pure laugh. It's a pure, these are just two crazy ladies. And it was really, really funny. And people are throwing parties and stuff like that. And again, you got some people that are trying to get revenge, and it's kind of cool when in the other movies, when they really explore the world, and you have kind of the people like, I forget what they're calling it, not the freedom fighters, but something like that, where they fight against the people who do the purge. They try to protect others and stuff. You kind of see where that starts. And I like that. I kind of like seeing where some of these things get going and where they come from, even though they're not surprising, but they're still cool to see. But then you got stuff like, the biggest problem with this movie is the tone, because which has always kind of been an issue with the Purge movies. But I mean, for the most part, it's like, it wants to be creepy, disturbing, and it like an exploitation movie. Like I said, the first one I didn't think really worked on that, but they got better as they went along. And this one still has that exploitation angle down, but then they'll do stuff like they'll throw in this comic relief, like, this middle-aged woman who just does not fit in this world at all. I mean, this is something like, at the very end, people are shot and they're bleeding and stuff, and she's totally fine. She doesn't have a scratch on her. She's just like, I have had one hell of a night. Like, don't cross me. And it's like, it's that bullshit. And it's sort of the acting on her isn't even really that great. I mean, because like they're reunited at one point. She comes in and they just see her, and you think her being reunited with her friend, you think she'd be like, oh, like just this big sigh of relief, and she can still say some funny stuff, but she's just like, I have had a hell of a time getting here. And it's like, really, like, after all this intense imagery and really suspenseful action scenes, like, you're gonna throw in this character? On top of that, the main protester in this movie is this very uninteresting monotone that just, and she's supposed to be like the badass. Like, she's the one that's like, yeah, I've held a gun before. Yeah, I've had a boyfriend. Yeah, no, we're not going without you. It's just kind of this monotone that maybe in another movie would work, but like, here it really doesn't. But on top of that, I'm just gonna go through like sort of all the bad actors I remember, or at least people that were not directed in a convincing way. The talks in the opening where like the newscaster is talking to the politician about, and the scientist about how this purge is supposed to work, and like, first of all, no reporter from an actual, like, news program, like a legit news program, would kind of talk like this. Just like, yeah, well, I see what you're trying to sell me there, but what will you say about blah, blah, blah? And the only news programs that talk like that are sort of like the big schlocky ones, like CNN or Fox News and stuff like that. And this guy did not have that schlock talk down. Like, you kind of see these schlock reporters and it's like, I am here to exploit this story as much as possible. Yeah, but what are you really trying to say? And this guy didn't talk like this. Like, well, I see what you're trying to give me there, but what exactly is going on with this and yada yada? Okay, well, now do you really believe that yada? And it doesn't work. Like, if you're gonna be a schlock reporter, be a schlock reporter. Go for the, I want my face in the center. I want to be as big a part of the story as what I'm covering. I want to be the focus of the story. Everybody's seen those reporters, and you think these movies would be great at showing that. Like the Hunger Games. It's like kind of the same thing with those over-the-top personalities and hosts and stuff like that. And then you have the politicians, especially the main guy who's like really who works for the NFFA in this, and again, he's trying to be that, but it's just kind of awkward and weird. Like, he's not in the same movie that like the main characters are in. He's there talking like this. Yes, the purge will be great, and we will see a new dawn in the, like, it sounds weird, but then you see like the main characters, like the main dude in this, who's like, he's the head of this gang, but he's trying to keep peace, and he just seems totally legit. Like, he is really in this war zone, and he's got to keep his head, and he's got to keep an eye out for who's going to betray him and who isn't, and he's got to keep control, and you just feel every decision he's making, like he just feels like a 100% real person. And then you kind of cut to these, like this very awkwardly acted politician, or this awkward newscaster, or this awkward, badass girl who's supposed to like, be fighting against them. And so it's a lot of stuff like that. Or the crazy guy, he's called Skeletor, and like, even for just schlocky, over the top, I'm crazy, like drool coming off, like, I just wasn't buying it. Like, it wasn't, sometimes I get a laugh at how kind of awkward it was, and I don't blame the actors when that stuff happens, because it's like, it's very tough to, when you're really playing crazy, you're supposed to play in a movie like this, like, you really gotta trust the director, like, what am I giving what this is supposed to look like, kind of thing. So I don't know, like, there's a lot of pieces that weren't fitting together, but like, those pieces on their own were very interesting. Because like I said, at first the purge isn't really working, or not working how they want it to. So again, if you see the other movies, you kind of know it's going to lead to the government intervening. and you see more and more what they're trying to do, and I feel like it could have stopped there. They didn't really have to over-explain it, but they do a little bit when the politician and the scientists are talking, which again, the scientist senses something is up and doesn't want false results. I really like that. I like, even though this is a crazy-ass idea, it's like, she's still like, no, I want the actual results. I want the real numbers. And the politician sort of steps in saying why he's intervening, and it's obvious why, and even though what he says isn't like laughably bad or anything, it's not needed. So you got all of that. You have that for the political angle, and then you sort of have the the violent, gory angle as well, which is kind of a slow burn, but it gets to it, and it starts off pretty intense. There's a really great fight sequence in like a stairwell it's almost done in one shot, but they cut it up, and it's not a big deal. But it's done really fast, really intense. I'm just watching it again. It's the main character, and he is just whooping ass in this scene, and it's such a cool moment. And at a part where the movie was starting to get boring, that kind of elevates it again. And it's just like, okay, I'm kind of back into this. I'm ready to get back into this film. And then they do this really weird thing where something happens in the building where the lights go off, and they'll come on for a second and then off for like 2, and then on for a second, then off for 2. And it's like, well, okay, they get a few good shots with that, like somebody's there, then it goes off, and then they're a little closer, and then it goes off, where he's hiding in the shadows. So, and the creepy masks that they have and stuff. So it's like they take advantage of that a little bit, but then like it's throughout the whole climax, and it gets so annoying so fast. And even the climax itself, when you compare it to the other films, I mean, to the first, the original film's credit, man, that's already causing confusion. To the original film's credit, the first one that came out, it did build to a climax that's like, was predictable, but it's like, okay, well, that's a legit climax. That's kind of where you feel like the story should go, and the other ones do too. This one kind of like, okay, well, it just ends on another action sequence, and it doesn't feel like it really built to anything, until the final line, which again is building up where this is all gonna go. And again, I feel like the dread in this movie is, I'm going back and forth on all this, but there's so many good things and so many bad things. The dread is so good in this because they're constantly talking about, is this going to be like the future? Is this going to be like what it is? It's like, no, this really isn't. This isn't going to happen. And it doesn't feel too winky, like it really feels like, it's going to fail. This is like what the future is going to be. And it's tough to watch all these people preparing, like, or trying to do good, or trying to, people hiding in churches and like holding on to their kids and stuff. It is like, man, they're like, this is intense. Like, this is really suspenseful. When it starts up and when people aren't doing anything or they are doing something, I mean, you don't know this world yet. You feel much more of that uncertainty, even though you know the direction the world is going to go. There's much more uncertainty because you also know the way the government's going to intervene. So it's very cleverly done. By the time the first movie starts, it's kind of like, well, this world's already established. You know how it works. It's just going to be a home invasion movie, and a pretty dull one at that, with the exception of the guy trying to get in. But yeah, with this one, there is weirdly enough, even though it's a prequel, there's a little bit more of an unpredictability of like, well, how many people are going to participate and how many aren't, and what's, the numbers say this, but what's actually going to happen. So yeah, it served these really intense two sides going at each other of like really good acting and really good commentary, good satire, good action, and then just this other side of really hokey acting, super obvious commentary. I mean, even down to a point where they play the America at one point, and they have like, just some of the imagery is just so over the top, in what they're trying to imply. And then you'll also have like annoying comic relief, and you'll have action sequences where the lights are just blinking, and it gets really annoying. So it's really tough. It's tough to say what I think of this film, because like I said, I'm still happy I saw it. I'm still really happy that like this is kind of a good, at least half of this movie is exactly where I wanted these movies to go. This, in many respects, really should have been the first movie. Like, with this concept, I'm like, you really can just skip the original Purge movie. I mean, it is just so pointless. Just looking back at all these films, I'm like, yeah, you can start with this one and then go to Purge Anarchy and then Purge Election Year. That totally works. You can just 100% skip the Ethan Hawke movie. You're not missing a thing, except for the leader of the Henry guy. I know he's not Henry, but that's not his name. But that's what I called him. I don't care. So yeah, if you like these movies, or even start to like them, it's just interesting enough. Some people, because some of the commentary does get very, in your face, I feel like that might upset a few people, and some would say it's good to get upset. Some would say it's way too obvious, or too preachy. But I think you kind of know that's got to be a little bit of an angle. Like I like these. I like the ones that feel a little bit more like an exploitation movie, and even in a strange way when it does get so obvious with the commentary, and it does obviously date it. I feel like that also kind of gives it its own identity. Like some exploitation films of the past, like what they're commenting on at that time, but that's kind of their charm too. But again, because they're trying to throw so much at you and only about half of it is working, I don't know if that's going to make it stay long, because there is almost a timeless element to this idea. Actually, I found out my dad was just telling me, apparently there's a Star Trek episode that had the same idea, so there is kind of a timeless element, I guess. But then when you mix in stuff that obviously is going to cement it, this was the year this came out, or this time period this came out, it does kind of distract a little bit. So I feel like it's strange. In some areas it goes too far, in some areas not far enough. It's very odd. But when it does hit, I really, really like it. It's, like I said, this is kind of the uncomfortable but awesome exploitation film I want to see with this idea. If somebody tells me this idea, this is kind of the movie I expect to see out of it. Crime is legal, one night a year, and this is how it starts. This is kind of the movie I want to see. This is kind of how I want to see it go. At least half of it. I really feel like there's the other half that needs work, and sometimes it is laughably bad, but it's not god-awful. It's like just annoying enough. I mean, there's no actor where I'm just like, oh my god. Actually, there are. The comic relief is pretty annoying, and Skeletor is pretty annoying. Like, I feel like especially with Skeletor, you could have had like a really cool character, like everybody would remember this guy, but they didn't have a clear vision for him. And maybe that's it. Maybe some elements, like, they really did have a clear vision of what they want to do with it, and then others, it's like, well, let's try this because we've seen it work in other films, but we don't really have an idea of what the end product is going to be. So it kind of feels like that. But I'm still glad I saw it. If you like the other Purge films, I say definitely check it out. I can't guarantee you'll like it, but there's still enough interesting things in there that I feel it's kind of warranted to see. But yeah, when it doesn't work, it does feel gimmicky. Not even kidding, in the credits, there's an ad for the TV show. Like, at first I thought it was a satire, because, there's a lot of satire in these movies, but it's a legit commercial for a future TV show about the Purge on USA, and that's painful, man. That is just like how it becomes so hard to say, yeah, go see this movie when there is a literal commercial for your TV show in there. Like, that just, like, in the credits. It's kind of cringy. So I don't know. It's cringy in the ways it's supposed to be cringy, and cringy in the ways it's not supposed to be cringy. So, I know it's kind of all over the map. I know it's kind of scatterbrained, but I would still say if you like these movies, I would still say go see it. I can't guarantee you'll love it, but I think you'll get some good stuff out. There's still some cool scenes, some cool visuals, and ideas. Like there's just cool concepts and ideas in there, and that's what I really feel the original Purge movie was missing. It was just one idea and then just never exploited. Exploit it for the exploitation film you're supposed to be. So, yeah, that's about it. Take a look. Tell me what you think. I'm really curious what people think of this movie, like the ones that follow the Purge films. Because if you if you're not following them, you're not going to see this one. I mean, I doubt you're going to just, yeah, I should just check this out, like just this one film. It's like, no, you're probably going to see the others and have your thoughts on them, or in some way be a fan of them. Yeah, I'm curious how this film goes over with fans. So that's about it, and I shall talk to you next time. Later.